The road broke into gravel and then into silence. A low-throated fog crawled the ditches, and the pines leaned inward, funneling the last of daylight toward a house not on any map. It squatted on a knoll of stone, black timbers and leaded panes, a weather-bitten sign creaking from one hinge. The 13 windows. There were only 12 you could count from the road. I had been walking since noon with a letter tucked inside my coat, the ink run to bruises by weeks of sweat and weather. "Come at dusk," it said, in a hand I knew and refused to name. "Knock once. Look for the 13th. The paper smelled of lavender and seawater and the fear of someone who had not slept enough to be kind. The door opened before I reached it. Heat rolled out along with the cinnamon-sour breath of cider gone to vinegar. A woman stood there in a faded red dress, her hair pinned with tarnished spoons as if silver remembered better than she did. "You're late," she said without accusation. "The night's already counting." Inside, the common room glowed with hearthlight, but the light didn't touch the windows. Tall, narrow panes climbed the walls in a ring, each sunk a finger's width deeper than the plaster, borders etched with salt-bitten sigils. Through them, the night didn't show. Other nights did. A storm strangled a lighthouse in one. A snowfield bruised with hoofprints lay under a green sky in another. In the third, a child stood ankle-deep in surf, whispering to the water like it could be convinced. The woman's spoons chimed when she moved. "Rooms are taken, names are taken, time's rented. Sit." I did. She set a glass in front of me, and my name climbed the surface like breath on cold. "People come to buy back a window," she said, "or to sell one. Sometimes they trade." "Which one is mine?" I asked, though the question tasted of admission. She nodded toward the darkest pane, the one that reflected nothing at all. "That's the 13th, she said. "It only opens from the inside." She poured more than cider. The glass showed places it had no business remembering. A rail yard at midnight, iron sweating frost. A hospital corridor that breathed bleach. A river mouth with lanterns drifting seaward like prayers with cut throats. "Windows grow where a promise breaks," she said, polishing nothing with a rag that had once been white. "People bring their promises here to see if the break can be mended, or if it sings better apart." A man with a butcher's hands stood beneath a pane where rain fell backward into a sky already drowned. He held a bent coin between finger and thumb. 2 hours, he told the window. The rain paused. 3, he offered, and the glass warmed until steam wrote names he couldn't finish. He left as if the house sold only humiliation, and he'd bought the good kind. "Payment?" I asked. "Not money," she said. "Memory, breath. Some bring blood. It doesn't spend. Mostly it's time. You give a night you could have had to buy back one you already lost." She nodded at the black pane. "Yours has been accruing interest." I stood before it. Up close, the surface rippled in slow breaths. When I leaned in, cold met my face like the inside of a cellar. Nothing appeared, which was worse than anything. The letter in my coat throbbed against my ribs like a second heart. "Knock," the woman said. Her spoons chimed, engraved with dates. Only once. My knuckles touched the pane. Sound didn't carry, it sank. The other windows answered. Storm, snow, surf. They folded their scenes and leaned toward me. Pressure rose behind the glass. I smelled rosemary and funeral wax. The 13th darkened further, black on black, and then a shape swam toward me. A room with 13 windows and a person inside, lifting their hand to knock. She stood at the hearth's edge. "If you go in," she said, "you owe the night one more window when you leave. That's the rule." "What happens if I can't come back?" Her spoons turned like a rosary. "You'll still pay. The black pain inhaled. Cold pinched my knuckles and drew the rest of me through without the trouble of a door. The floor on the other side was the same timber and hearthstone, but the fire burned with a light that had never met flame. It licked without heat. The room smelled of rain left too long in a bucket. 12 windows ringed the walls. Each looked onto a fragment of night I knew too well. My mother's porch, with the chair still rocking. The ferry slip where I had promised not to leave. A field where summer gnats stitched halos over a shirt I meant to return. In the 13th, I saw the common room I'd just left, and the woman in red, her face turned from the hearth as if listening. Someone stood beside me. They wore my coat before I owned it, sleeves unfrayed, pockets without the ash burn that ruined mine. Their hair lay the way it had when sleep still visited. You kept the letter, they said. I kept the night. Who pays? The one who wants it back. They glanced at the panes. Not memory. Debt. In the ferry window, a shape stepped onto the plank and did not turn. On the porch, the chair stilled. In the field, the gnats became ash. I pressed my palm to the glass and felt only absence of warmth. Choose, my other said. Pay with what you wish you'd done, or with what you still might. I reached for the porch. My hand went through like water that hardened an inch past the surface, trapping the wrist. Cold climbed to the elbow with needle patience. I heard my mother laugh at something I would never say. I pulled free, skin blanched. You can't hold 2 nights at once, they said. You can only trade. How? Make a window the house doesn't own. Give the night a door. They lifted their hand and knocked once on my chest. The sound sank. All 12 panes leaned toward the noise like wolves to a dropped tear of meat. Behind us, the 13th darkened, and the woman in red finally turned her head, as if to warn me of something she had already sold. Pressed my palm where the knock had gone. The skin there tingled, not from nerves but from attention. The other me watched, arms folded like a clerk. What door can you give? They asked. You own so few. I set the letter on the hearthstone. The wax had cracked to crumbs, but the impression remained. A sprig of rosemary, a tide line, a fishbone. I had not answered when it came. I'll pay with a night I was supposed to keep, I said, and the house seemed to lean closer. The woman in red's voice drifted through the 13th like smoke. Careful, she said. The house loves grammar. It will take your tense and make it law. I breathed onto the pane until fog bloomed. With my thumb, I wrote the night I meant, ferry at dusk, a plate warming, a porch light left on. The glass tasted it and hardened. A 13th of a 13th grew there, no wider than my hand, a new dark square waiting to be named. Name it, my other said. I did. The word had my mouth shape, but someone else's steadiness. The tiny pane shuddered. On the porch window, the chair slowed. In the ferry window, the shape looked over a shoulder, I remembered. In the field, ash became gnats for a heartbeat. Now give it over, they said. I lifted the small square. It stuck like ice. The cold burned along my tendons when I passed it to them. They pressed it to the wall, and the room accepted it with the sound of a swallow. All 13 trembled. A subtraction rippled through them, a ledger balancing at my expense. The ferry smelled of river. For one breath I heard slippers on floorboards and the clink of plates. Then the square darkened and went still. The trade set. What did it cost? I asked. Tomorrow, my other said. The night after this one you won't have. The house owns it. A tremor passed through the floor. The knock returned, not from my chest, but under the room, deep and slow. The other me flinched. It's not finished, they said. You paid to open. You haven't paid to leave. The knock under the room slowed to patience. My other stood between me and the black pane. To go back, they said. You give the house a window it can hang on you. Somewhere it can look out when it wants. Take my tomorrow, I said. That bought the hinge, they replied. Not the view. Their gaze slid to my ribs. The night likes a cage of bone. I thought of the chair and the ferry and the porch light. I tore a thin strip from the letter and wound it round my left wrist until the paper creaked and the skin beneath remembered blood. I breathed on the pain until it clouded and wrote the only thing I had to give. My name unshortened. From before leaving taught me to clip it. A square appeared no larger than a coin. It didn't wait to be named. I pressed it to my chest, an inch left of center. The cold went in like a key. The room exhaled. A rope groaned. Gnats rose and were not ash. The coin set in me and locked. Now go, said the other. Their mouth softened into the shape of a memory. Before the house once more. The black pain inhaled and pulled me through. Heat hit my face, cider and wood smoke. The woman in red aligned spoons to catch 13 slivers of nothing. You paid, she said. I owe another, I answered, palm over the coin. That's how it works. That's how it works, she said. When it wants to see, it will look through you. Keep to roads where the miles know your feet. Outside, fog held the ditches. 12 windows glowed in the Knoll house. A 13th lay where only I could feel it, opening and closing with my breath. The sign creaked. The 13 windows. From the road you could still count only 12. I walked, each tree a pane, each puddle a mouth. Now and then something peered out through me and watched the night I was making, the future I no longer owned. When the wind shifted, it carried rosemary, river, and the clink of plates from a porch that would go quiet as I passed. I did not look back. The house would see it for me. By the time the fog thinned enough to show more than a few yards ahead, I realized the road beneath my boots wasn't the same one I'd taken to the house. The gravel was black, not gray, and it hummed faintly, as though a current ran under it. The trees leaned away from the path now, their trunks bending back like they feared to be too close. I should have been miles from the knoll, yet the house's scent still clung to me. Wood smoke, vinegar cider, rosemary. With each step, that scent thickened instead of fading. It wasn't following me, I was circling it. The horizon kept rearranging itself, swapping one stretch of shadow for another. My breath fogged heavier than the air should have allowed. That was when I felt it, the weight of the window in my chest stirring. Not opening yet, just watching. The wind's touch shifted, coming not from ahead but from inside me. I turned once, twice, and the road behind was gone, replaced by a dark plain, slick as ink, dotted with windows floating upright in the open air. Each one pulsed faintly, framing scenes that looked almost like mine, but not quite. Versions of my nights bent wrong. The porch light cold, the ferry rotting at the dock, a field where the gnats swarmed something not human. From the corner of my eye, one window swung on an invisible hinge, and a figure stepped through. The same coat, the same face, my other self. But older now, a shadow under their eyes where days should have been. They didn't speak, just pointed past me. And when I turned, I saw the black-paneled house, standing exactly where it had been, sign creaking in the wind. My chest ached. The coin window inside me was warming. I had not left at all. The woman in red waited at the threshold, spoons in her hair, catching moonlight that hadn't been there before. "You've been walking in your own tomorrow," she said. "You should have spent it better while you had it." The words dug deeper than I wanted to admit. The moment I stepped closer, the window in my chest flared cold hot, like breath across metal in winter. My sight doubled. One vision showed her standing in the doorway, the other showed the room empty, the door hanging open onto a darkness without floor or sky. "You have a choice," she said, and her voice came in two tones, one from her mouth, one from inside my ribs. "Close the window, keep what you've paid for, and the night will only borrow you sometimes. Or open it all the way and see where the night keeps the rest of you." My fingers went to the coin. It was no longer flush with skin. It had edges now, beveled and sharp. Behind me I heard steps, my other self approaching, boots crunching the knot road. "If you close it," they said, "you'll forget the house, but it won't forget you." "And if I open it," I asked. "You'll know everything it owns," they said, "and pay for it forever." I turned toward the house. The black pane waited, a perfect reflection of my coin. As I stepped over the threshold, the 13th window pulsed, and for the first time I felt it, looking at me instead of through me, waiting for my hand. I pressed my palm to the black glass. The coin in my chest spun, slow but unstoppable, as if aligning with some great gear inside the house. The woman in red stepped back, spoons shivering. "You're certain," she said, not as a question. The pain didn't draw me in this time. It pushed. Cold flooded outward from the glass, rushing into me until I felt my ribs strain. My other self stood to my right, their eyes reflecting 13 small squares of darkness. "This is it," they said, though I couldn't tell if it was warning or relief. The room beyond the pane lit, not with firelight but with the glow of all the windows at once. Every night anyone had ever traded here burned in the glass. There were thousands. Each one flickered with a life moment that had been sold, stolen, or given away. And behind them all, something vast shifted, as though rearranging itself for the first time in centuries. Then it leaned close. It didn't have a face. It had panes, an infinite array of them, each showing something I didn't want to admit I recognized. My hands on doors I should have never opened. My voice saying words I'd never dared to speak aloud. My shadows standing in places my feet had never touched. "You belong," it whispered without sound. "Not because you came, but because you knocked." The coin in my chest clicked once. My vision tunneled, narrowing to the black pane. And then it opened. Not from my side, but from inside me. The last thing I saw before the darkness poured through was the 13th window, swinging on its hinge, with the house watching from the other side.